everybody, and welcome to the MOOBment. I'm the creator of the MOOBment and your host, Lori-Ann, and I'm so glad you are here with us today. We have a wonderful show for you and a special guest, especially if you are having a chaotic, MOOB-filled, sun-filled, crazy day, because our guest is Sarah Ezrin, and Sarah is a yoga educator. She's an author, a writer, and a maternal mental health advocate. She's based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and she is here to talk to us not so much about practicing yoga, but how we can apply the practice of yoga to our everyday parenting needs. And that we know is something that MOOBs and those who love us could really benefit from. So Sarah, welcome. Welcome to the MOOBment.
Thank you, Lori-Ann. I'm so glad to be here. And I love that we just got each other from like the first time we connected. I love the name of your podcast. I love everything it stands for. And if I can help any mom feel less alone, then, and which is, I know what your intention is too, then I feel like I've done my job. So it's all worth it. It's all worth those crazy mornings and
it is
evenings.
We have the same MO. So that's good. And I want to tell everybody that Sarah wrote this wonderful book called The Yoga of Parenting. And we're going to talk about the book, but let's talk about Sarah to start with, because we are about motherhood here. And Sarah is, in fact, a MOOB. You are a mother of only boys. So tell us, Sarah, about your family and about your sons, anything that we can learn about you.
Yeah. I'm like, where do I start? I was born on a winter day. So I always like, I never know where to start. I'll start with the present because I think the present, this is the most applicable because when I wrote this book, I was pregnant with my second when I wrote it. So I didn't even have a second kid. My first, I think it was like a year and a half. So it was like, I had no business writing a parenting book, and I admit that now, but it's yogic principles, which can be applied to all of life. But now here we are, and my kids are 6.5, or he'd say 6 3/4 and 4. And it is wild. It is wild because I used to, when I would lead motherhood groups, I love to lead women in circle, whether it's movement based, so it's like yoga or meditation, or just maternal mental health circles, right, to support one another. When my kids were quite young, I would remember that there would be moms in there whose kids were in elementary school or even middle school, and they would always say, I have 2 energetic boys. And like mine were energetic, but I didn't understand what that meant until the last 2 years or so, until they started to be so physical with each other. I think my second always wanted to be that physical, but it wasn't until he had the physical ability. It wasn't until he was about 2, right? And that he could really start to spar with his brother, and that the two of them, because they're so close in age, became the best of friends, that they started digging up on me. On my husband. And even though, I don't know if they ever would have picked each other as best friends out in the real world if they weren't under the same roof and of the same genes. Because they're so vastly different, they have become the best of friends, and it can get really intense because when they're together, even if it's excitement, which I do think is a positive emotion and important, it can just build and build and build and build and build. And even just this morning, for example, we often will play Uno in the morning. I'll speak for myself because I don't have a specific diagnosis for either boy yet. But I know for me and my husband, there's a lot of neurodivergence, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of mental health layers that are involved. So, fidgeting and being unable to stay focused during a very quiet dinner or breakfast is just impossible. So we like playing Uno or doing something dynamic at the breakfast table so that everybody's involved and we're using our hands and we're thinking, and you get to move around and move your body. But this morning was just they were so excited. It's their last day of camp. One of them was screeching in my ear. The other one, I joke because he's always on my team. It's like playing with a friend in college who's super wasted. And you're like, no, you put your card here. And they're putting it somewhere else. And you're like, no, I'm on your team. And then they're throwing you under the bus. But that was them excited. And so it's hilarious. And you're trying to herd cats. But this was just a typical snapshot of breakfast. And thank God for my wellness practices and my yoga practice. And when I say yoga, I mean meditation, breathing, any kind of movement, studying, all of that, because I don't know how I would make it every single day, even in the most positive days.
Yeah. So you said so many things in there that resonated with me, and I'm sure resonated with so many people who are listening here. First of all, I have 3. So you can imagine 3 against 2, forget it. Just, you don't stand a chance at that point. But your sons are young, and we've had so many psychologists and parenting experts comment about the biology, especially of boys. And first of all, how many times they are misdiagnosed to have ADD and other issues when in fact their development is normal. It's just different from girls. And it's, and when there is more than one boy in the house, I can testify they feed off of each other. And it's the physical, like you say. I mean, we all have that same story. Like every MOOB in the room is shaking around and saying, yeah, me too. Because we get that. So I think I'd like to tell you as they grow up, that will stop, but it doesn't. They wrestle through adulthood. It's just what boys do. But what you are seeing now, I do believe just gets better and better as far as the brotherhood and the bond. And I hear that again from, it's my own experience. I hear it in yours and so many other people that there is this brotherly bond, that they just are each other's best friends. And that's just the way it is. And it's great what you're doing as far as engaging them. And, sometimes it's all about sports or, one person, one brother likes this, another brother likes something else. So when you have a family activity like that, if you can get them to sit down and play Uno, that's amazing. That's great. It's a yoga practice in itself. I don't know how you do that, but, yeah. So
I was the youngest of 5. I was the youngest of 5 kids. The next sibling in line to me is 10 years older. And then our oldest sibling, who unfortunately passed away, would have been 15 years older than me. So the distance between me and my siblings, like when I was growing up, I felt like a baby amidst adults, right? I would have these moments of like where it was almost like they were my aunts and uncles, or also feeling like an only child. Right. And I was desperate to have that closeness and to have somebody that was like, sharing a room with me. And the beauty of my relationship with my siblings is that as I got older, and it was really around like 15, 16, the age gap closed. And now I am best friends with all of them. Like, interestingly, or maybe not interestingly, because men tend to have babies later or can, my brothers waited later. So their children are, they're closer in age to mine, even though my brothers
and you.
I have 2 that are still with us. And then one brother, unfortunately, took his own life.
So you grew up in a house of boys,
but I grew up in a house of boys
for having sons.
Yes, it was very, but it was just, seeing that. And then I wanted that closeness. I wanted to see I was more like anthropological than anything. I was like, I just want to study this and see what it's like for the 2 of them. And it's so beautiful and so fascinating. And like, of course they get bored of each other, or not, maybe they don't get bored. That's not the right word. They get sick of each other. And, a hug very quickly turns into a strangle. But I watch the littlest especially, and just the adoration he has for his big bro. And I watched the big brother too, and like how he gets to step into that role. And he's like teaching him tic-tac-toe right now. We got a car version that's like felt. We like games here, clearly. And I don't know. It's been such a privilege to watch that dynamic that, it almost makes the concussions and black eyes. And I mean me, by the way. I'm the one who got the concussion and the black eyes. It makes it worth it, because it's just watching these 2 and this beautiful love life, this loving relationship.
Yeah, it's the best thing you can do for them is just, give them that brotherhood, and it's a nice thing to watch. You're right. And I'm glad that you got that. You seem like you are made to be a MOOB, a boy mom. And that's great. And like you said, you were raised surrounded by men and by boys. So you pretty much have some experience in that, which is great. So tell me I know a little bit about yoga. I'm not a yogi, so to speak, but I do know my downward dog. What does downward dog, what does yoga have to do with parenting?
So a lot of people in the West misunderstand yoga as just the poses. So automatically that's where your brain goes. You hear yoga and we think of it as a form of fitness or a form of stretching. But yoga is actually an umbrella term. We can edit that, right?
Yes. We can.
Okay.
Start
Yoga
again.
is actually Pat, I forgot his name. All right. Yoga is actually an umbrella term for a number of contemplative practices. And the root of the word yoga is unity. So it's anything that you're doing to unite with yourself, with others, or with higher power, if you believe that, right? And there are some practices that you do by yourself. There's some practices you do in a group. We know the physical poses of it, but that's just like a fingernail of all the practices that are available. There's singing and chanting and, even the Sufi mystics, right? With like the whirling dervishes and, prayer and writing and those moments of flow, like when I'm a writer. So it's like, when time stands still and you're just in it and your fingers are moving or your pen is moving and something is coming through you or those early days of the newborn snuggles where it just you and baby feel like you are one. Meditation, I believe I said prayer. All of those things fall under the category of yoga. So when we're thinking about parenting as a practice, it is a yoga practice because here we are learning to unite with ourself, the parts of ourself that we may feel like we're losing, the parts of the self that we're becoming. It's connecting to another being. It's connecting to the family nucleus because now what was a dyad and just you and your partner, if you have one, or perhaps you're a single parent by choice, that if you are in a dyad, that gets changed. And then suddenly now you're part of like a bigger, a group of people and like trying to understand that and where do you fit in and how does everybody stay united? But more importantly, how do you stay united to the divine, whatever you may think that may be. So lots of people would say nature. Some people would say, in more Judeo-Christian viewpoint, you would say God. And it's really just, that higher, wiser self. So everything is a practice to get you to that place of connection.
And basically, as we were just talking about before with the chaos, with the wrestling, we as moms are looking for that sense of peace, of that taking care of ourselves, we're always told be present. What does that actually mean as far as in a yoga practice? And is that what we're doing? We're trying to get to that point so that we can be the best parent we can be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such a great question. And I do go into a big part of that in the book, and particularly about presence, and that I think it's been weaponized against moms. And I'm just going to speak from, I know we're talking about, raising boys and moms and, I don't mean to be exclusive in my languaging. I'm just speaking from my own experience. And what my experience has been is that this, like, you must be present and you must be attentive and you must be attuned at all times gets weaponized against parents and particularly, I feel, women, so that when we do try to do other things for ourselves or for our career or in other areas of interest, that, we're then being told like, well, no, now you're not being focused on your kid. But that's just not how attention works, right? So we do, of course, have practices where you are, and I'll save those Sanskrit words, but it's like, where you are dropping so far into the present that you almost become one with the present. Like, yes, okay, great. And there are times for that. And that a lot of what I was explaining earlier with the writing and the newborn cuddles, like those are moments of that. I think flow state is very much that, but we can't live in the flow state. We are here in this phase of our life, in this, middle age, early adulthood, whatever the range is of having babies. In this place, we are what's called householders, and we are put on this earth to fulfill our purpose. And maybe the purpose is kids. Maybe the purpose is to share the message to other moms. Maybe the purpose is to, create some new formula in physics. And I don't know what the purpose is. Only you know what the purpose is. But this is that period of life where we are both fulfilling our purpose, and we are also, if you are having children, if you're choosing to have children, however you have them, then you are also contributing to the world and procreating, right? And again, maybe you've adopted, maybe there's a surrogacy or a foster. It doesn't matter how they came into being. However, your ward is there. This is that phase. So the phase is you're out there in the world. You're earning income. That's a big thing. Like, I think there's a lot of misconception in the yoga world of like, no, you should just be like in a cave somewhere and meditating all day long. And that's great and good. And there are stages for that, but that's not the stage of the householder. That's not the stage of the mother or the father or the parent. In this stage, we are out there. We are earning income because we need to be able to fulfill our purpose, and whatever that purpose may be. And again, I don't think parenthood is my sole purpose. I think it's a beautiful gift that I get to experience in this phase. I know some moms that believe their children are their purpose, right? I think it's very different. My kids are amazing and they're a gift of mine, and it's a privilege, but I don't know if that's my purpose. I think my purpose is more connection and connecting to people. And I get to connect with them right now, but it's just a short time. But we need to be able to be in the world in order to fulfill that purpose. So it's all great and good to think of the yogi or meditator up in the cave by themselves, but that's not the stage that parenthood is. So how can we learn to find that steadiness, and whether it's presence or allowing ourselves to drift towards the past to learn something, or future tripping because we need to make a plan and we need to put steps into motion that's going to create X, Y, and Z so that we can support our family. It all becomes these different paths of yoga.
Right. So I hear what you're saying about being in this stage of life and fulfilling your purpose. And certainly as a parent, while we hope that that's not your entire life and purpose and in that stage, it is a big part of what we're doing. But is it not so important, because, we multitask as moms all the time. Is it not so important to find some time for yourself and some time for that, me time, and that, tuning everybody and everything out and finding that place at the same time as being a good parent? And in fact, doesn't that actually help you be a good parent?
Yes. I'm like nodding for anybody that's just listening.
Yes.
My head is going to fall off of my body.
So how do we do that?
Oh gosh, Lorianne, it changes through different phases and different times, but we have to carve that space out for ourselves. It is essential. And, I remember once my husband was saying, oh, well, this is, we're Jewish. I don't know why he was using this terminology, but he's like, this is it's God's work, what we're doing as parents. Like, we're not meant to have pleasures and like, that's not our life. And that's not my husband. I don't know where that was coming from, but I was thinking like, that's part of that messaging that a lot of the moms get that keeps us,
right?
Yes. It's that guilt, like stay in the corner, take care of the family. That's your primary purpose. That's where you are the leader of that, so that you're not out in the world and being successful and uniting with other women and creating powerful change. Like, it's like, no, stay where you are. But I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, of course it is being of service, and it is an absolute privilege, and it's a miracle that something I personally grew something and then it came into the world. Like, that blows my mind. And I'm still Sarah. I'm
right.
still
your identity and who you are. You have to stay true to yourself.
And they're not going to be living here for their whole life.
Right.
I mean,
and
God willing.
By you doing what you're doing, do as I do, without you saying the words, they're watching, they're listening. And you're teaching them to value themselves by watching you value yourself.
I mean, I like to think so. Yeah. I had a very independent mom who really protected her personal time and protected her space. And, I didn't get it totally at the time, but now I do. And I see it in my sons. As I said, they're two very different people. One of them needs more downtime, needs more quiet. I call him my indoor cat. And the other one, of course, is the golden retriever, and just the total opposite of that, and like wants to sit on his lap and is in his face and is all over. And the one that's the indoor cat can communicate to him and say, I need space right now. He can ask me And this is like, this was happening when he was 3. He was able to ask me and be like, I'd like to do room service. Meaning instead of eating at the breakfast table with all of us where it's like chaos and dogs and, the baby, that this was when it was the baby. That the 3-year-old would go into his room with a tray and he would eat by himself. And that was his room service. Like he had been asking for that. Even before that, he had already been asking for that. Now, the youngest, who's my golden retriever, like for him, it's the opposite. Like it's like death for him if you try to separate him from anybody. But so he's been really good about learning how to communicate that he needs more. He needs more connection. He wants hugs and kisses. He wants you in the bed with him. And I have to, being the touched out mom, that's exhausted at the end of the day. I then have to make that really hard choice of like, I'm sorry, I've already come in your bed 3 times tonight. I love you, and come up with different creative ways where I can still go and sit on the couch. And I will even say, I'm like, I am clocked out. I am done, you guys, especially at the end of summer now. Like what, the littlest will get out of his bed and come into the living room and go in and out and in and out and in and out until like, 9:30 at night. And I'm like, I am done. I am cooked. But I feel comfortable to be able to say that to him because I know that I had for an hour prior to that, read him books, gave him a bath, climbed into his bed, gave him hugs and kisses. I put 1,000,000 kisses. I mean, I don't do 1,000,000, but I do sometimes we'll do like 100 kisses into the pillow. I do all this stuff. And that the second he opens his eyes in the morning, I'm going to be the one that's in there, no phone. Like it's just me greeting the boys and having morning cuddles.
Which is great for them and great for you because you have this time in your life with them. And I can tell it gives you a sense of joy, taking care of them, being there, being present for them. So you're really helping them and you're helping yourself at the same time. What would you say to the mom who is wrapped up in the chaos and not giving herself time to herself? What do you wish she would give herself permission to do to take care of herself?
So I do an exercise with the moms that I work with, if it's in circle or I'm doing private coaching with them, where rather than me telling them like, oh, you need to now schedule 5 minutes in the morning and you do get up at 4 in the morning and I'm just piling things onto their plate, I slow them down. Because I had to do this for myself, which is like I slowed down and I was like, where am I already stealing these moments? Because even if it's a fraction of a second, is there a moment where you are giving that to yourself? Is it, for example, that when the kids are so difficult to get plugged into the car and they're fighting and this one wants this toy and everybody wants this toy. And I know this sounds really reductive because everybody talks about this moment, but it's like you shut the doors and you're walking over to your car seat. Like, are you really in that moment? That's where we get
to, is what you're saying.
And soak it in. Or are you like, oh, it was so hard. And then you're spending that whole 30 seconds that you had back in the past of what was going on. Can you instead close the doors? Yes, they'll still be, making their noises, and look up and see the cloud formations and soften the shoulders and take a bigger breath.
So you're saying those moments are there.
They are already there.
They're already there. You don't have to make the 5 minutes, the 10 minutes. They're there. You just have to
you may need to slow it down enough so that they are starting to feel more expanded, but you don't need a timer. There's no like, you don't need to set a timer and be like, I must stand outside of my car for 1 minute. It's just like, how would it very simply be if the doors shut and then you just felt where your feet were? Like literally you felt your feet in your shoes. And if you're in flip-flops, you felt the rubber underneath the soles of the feet. And if you were in running shoes, you kind of rocked the weight to the toes and to the heels a little bit. And you just took that moment to bring your attention down into your roots and to ground you. What would it be like to just put a hand on the heart and a hand on the tummy and take one full breath? Those moments are there. It's the giving them more reverence and treating them as the moments of pause and importance that they are.
So I love that. I have never really heard it phrased that way. And, I've always heard, take 5 minutes, walk away. And that does work too when you make that your priority. But I love what you say, because it is there for everybody. And it's like that with anything. It's seeing the glass half full, grabbing the moments when you can. Maybe even embracing the chaos sometimes and just laughing along and wrestling and roughhousing with them, and jumping into that. And laughter is pretty good medicine sometimes. So I love that take on it. And I think everybody could benefit from that and get something out of that as well. So that's one way to be kind to ourselves. What are some other ways that we can be kind to ourselves in the practice of parenting?
Yeah. Well, you bring up like when it is chaotic and, should you jump in and wrestle? Like, I don't know about you. Like my life is so physical. It's so physical that when it's 5:30 p.m. and they're starting to wrestle, I don't want to get up and go wrestle with them. By the way, it's not like I'm sitting down at 5:30 anyway.
Right.
I'm making the lunches. I'm feeding the dog. I'm walking the dog. I'm like, bringing in bringing in their backpacks, cleaning out the lunch boxes. Like it's so physical that like, I just don't want people to start to be like, oh, well now I gotta like, you don't have to do that either. Right. You can observe from a distance and that's all fun and good. But let's talk about the inevitable things escalate and someone crosses a line. And the next thing you know, you're either yelling or threatening, or you're doing something that, you wouldn't do in your conscious and grounded state of mind. It wouldn't be a choice. Let's just say that. If the frontal lobe was still online, that's probably not the path you would have taken. What do you do then? Well, it's very similar to the walking around the car. I mean, I think so much of this is the practice of yoga. You're coming back to the present moment. And the second that you can come back into your body and back into a calm place, and listen, that may mean you going into a bathroom. I have been locked in my room with the door shut and them banging on the door so that I could take 5 breaths. I have literally been like, I have to step outside and they're like faces pressed against the glass. I don't know if you can visually see, but we have like these, glass sliding doors and they're like, waiting for me because I needed that break. I needed that pause.
Yeah.
And then when I found myself a little calmer, I come back inside, or I come into their room, or I come and sit down next to them. And that is when you have the opportunity to repair. And something I have worked on and try really, really, really hard to do is when I am repairing, even though they caused it, and I say this with levity, like, even though it's all their fault. No, even though they had a part, I really try to just focus on my part. It's so hard to do. And I don't know if you've ever, this is so good for in intimate relationships too, because you want to be like, well, you did this, which is why I did X, Y, and Z. But like, what if you were just like, I'm sorry I did X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry that I raised my voice. And I know all of us want to be like, but you were la, la, la. What if we cut half the sentence out and it was very simply, I'm sorry I did this. And I can't tell you, because my kids, I do yell, right? And I hate it. I loathe it. I don't want to ever get to that point. And it's not, I'm also gentle with myself on the other side, because it's not like I go from this to screaming. I've told them 30 times already. I say to them, do you hear my voice escalating? I'm like, can you see my facial expressions changing? Can you hear my tone changing? Like, by the time it gets there, it had built up to that. So I try to be really calm and kind to myself about it. But inevitably, because it does happen more than I'd like, when we are laying on the pillow at the end of the day, or we're sitting on the couch and I am owning my part without needing to be told to do it, they will own their part and apologize too.
Really? So you find that if you put it on yourself,
and I don't put it on myself. I just own my part, right?
You own your part.
I think that's an important clarification. Like, I'm not like, oh, everything. Like, no, they, listen, he's using the, calling me a bad name. Like that's, I didn't do anything there, but my yelling back to him that's my reaction. So that's the part I can apologize for.
So rather than chastise him for his behavior,
yes,
you're getting him to acknowledge his own behavior. Sounds like.
Yeah.
Which has got to be so much more effective, because he's Well, that's the theory.
Let's do a catch up in 20 years. So I do hear from people that you'll be surprised that like in their teen years, you're like, wow, and I do see it with them. I do. I mean, again, it's like a constant party with the two of them, as you said. And if it's the testosterone, I don't know what it is, but it's like you get them together and it escalates and they egg each other on. That is for sure. But when I watch them as independent people, and when I sit back and I don't want to be roughhousing, and I'm so darn tired, and I include this in the book. I love like anthropological studies. I alluded to it earlier, where I can like sit in a table, like in it, like almost hidden, like a hidden camera, but it's me, and watch them. I really do see these beautiful dynamics play out. Now, does one of them like smack the other one in the head with a baseball bat? Like, yes, that's how I got my concussion. One of them hit me in the head with a bat. That will happen. Lines will be crossed. But when they're, same thing, right? When they're able to stay in their frontal lobe, I'm thinking of Dr. Daniel Siegel and his like blow your lid. You remember to read that stuff?
Yes.
He wrote so much good stuff about that. When they're able to be in their bodies and how they handle conflict, they are getting it. They really are. And like, even just watching how they apologize to each other. And, of course there's like, I'm sorry, there's that side, but then sometimes you'll hear, can I do anything for you? What can I get you?
The empathy.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're out in a public place and there's a meltdown, there's a tantrum? I mean, the phrase I have in my head as you were talking was, we want to act, not react. So we want to think about what we want to do and say versus just, reacting to the moment. But sometimes, like, let's talk realistic. We're in a situation. We are out in the supermarket and they're duking it out, or somebody has a tantrum and gets down on the floor and starts screaming. How do you find your center, your breath, yourself in that, or how do you handle it? Is there a way?
I said I was never going to do. There's some bribery involved.
Sometimes that's what we have to do.
I mean, sometimes I do find that with my youngest too, because he's an Aries. He's super strong-willed. He's the second. Like, I think the seconds are just built tough, right? Second and third, I imagine. Like, I'm the youngest of 5. Like, I know how stubborn I can be. But yes, with him, like, sometimes you have to. Bribery is the only way. I mean, some of the work that I do, like, I'm in 12-step recovery. I have a therapist. I take SSRIs. I am on hormone replacement therapy. I do yoga. I meditate. I pray every day. Like, I do so much self-inquiry work all day long. Like, maybe you could say I overdo it, but I do so much that I'm really trying to slow down in those moments. What am I reacting to? Because there's a part of me that's seeing the other people watching, and then I'm performing for them.
Right.
And then I'm like, what are they thinking? And then there's the part of me that's like, taking it very personally, whatever is happening with the kids. So I think it has to happen outside of that moment of doing these kinds of practices, the grounding in your feet, the touching your hands to your body. Like, you don't have to do all those things I named. I just happen to be someone that needs as much as possible. But like, you're doing those things outside of those moments. So when those moments happen, you can slow down enough to be like, what am I actually responding to right now? Because am I yelling at them because I'm embarrassed that Teddy's mom looks so perfect over there and Teddy has never made a peep? But, I don't, the only Teddys I know are actually like very similar energy to my kids and fantastic. So I don't know. I'm using that as an example.
But girls, though, girls.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And again, it's like, I do think gender is a construct. And my kids happen to identify as men, right? And as boys. I mean, they have told me as such. So I think that there are some girls, women, there are some kids that were born with female anatomy that maybe feel more masculine in their energy. And I think there's some people that were born with male anatomy and they may be more female, but yes, the people that tend towards, the girls that identify as girls that are very much like in the Elsa costume, and that there is a difference energetically and hormonally of like how they're showing up in the world versus how my boys are showing up. And it is easy for me to feel insecure if I'm allowing other people's opinions to be what's leading my behavior. But when I am doing my other practices outside of parenting, when I'm filling my cup with my other mom friends and 12-step recovery and, doing things that I love, even if it's just a couple minutes a day, then when those moments happen, it doesn't mean I don't react. Like, believe me, I do. We've been yanked out of many stores and carried them like a surfboard. But I just get to understand a little bit more clearly where the reaction is coming from. Because sometimes in public, our reactions are really layered with fear of what other people are thinking in that moment.
That's interesting. I mean, there's so much of that. I mean, and I think it gets harder and harder the more we are involved with social media and we see this image of perfection and other people and what they're doing. And it's not always reality. I mean, the chances are you have two little boys who are, wrestling and having a tantrum. So is everybody else.
Yeah.
You just don't always see it. So it's a hard thing when you feel like you're being judged by people. It really is.
And listen, I have had, I just want to normalize this for other moms and especially moobs, as you call them, is like, I've had these thoughts where I'm like, can we ever go to a party without there being drama? Someone's crying and I'm like, oh, my kid did it. I know my kid did it. Right. And I've been more pleasantly surprised as they've gotten older and they've done better. They're learning regulation much better. It really has, it is leveling out in a different way, but it was like those first few years, I'm like, I don't even feel comfortable leaving the house.
Right. But so much of it is the biology that this is how boys develop.
And this is what's important. Yes.
Develop.
And I see Boy Mom behind you too, which is a fantastic book and a really important book.
We have Ruth on our show, as a matter of fact.
She's
just
amazing.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And taught us a lot of things. We also had Christopher and Joanna talk to your boys, and you talked about communication and, so important in this generation of boys and how we are bringing them up. So,
I'll never forget, and I know we're running out of time, but I just want to share this one story because I think it really helps all moobs out there. So we were at a birthday party. It was like a 3-year-old little girl's birthday party, and we were all at a park, and all the boys that were in attendance, there was a couple older brothers there. And at some point, everyone took their shirts off because, tarps off. They all like to get naked no matter where you are. And they were running around, and there was like a track that went around the park. And one of the kids, it's my friend's son, who's like a year older. So he's like, he's like 7 at the time, would run ahead of all of the bicycles. They'd all be on bikes and scooters, and they chased him it was like an hour of them just going in a circle. And I was thinking to myself, because they were doing great. And then at the end, they were all sweaty and they came and they beat the piñata, and I used beat very conscientiously. And then they went and ran again. But it made me think like, this is what they need to be doing.
They needed.
My son doesn't need to be sitting in a chair still, focusing on something for 8 hours a day. Yeah. Like, yes, I mean, even my indoor cat, right? Like there needs to be these moments of physicality. We all need that. And especially with these higher energy boys, they need to be out there and moving around. And that's not what the school system is built around. That's not what like the system of education is focused on for them. Like PE is one of the first things that's being cut next to music class, these creative outlets. When really, like, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, should I just like send them into the woods? Like, should I just start? I mean, with someone, don't worry.
Right.
Not by them. Well, some days.
Look, it's really important for the teachers, the principals, the teachers to understand that. But it's also important for the moms, the parents to understand that. I was in a situation recently where I was in an airport and we were at the baggage carousel, and there was a little boy there, and he was kicking the suitcases. He probably got off of the plane after being on the plane for 5 hours, kicking the suitcases. The mom is yelling at him, and the words out of her mouth were not pleasant. And I turned and I looked, and I was really not judging. I was looking with my MOOB cap on thinking, and my experience is having boys who are now grown. This kid, he's not trying to act out and do something bad. He needs physicality.
Yeah.
Ask him to run around the suitcases 10 times. Then ask him to run around the other way. Let him get it out. And then address, now I need you to sit for 5 minutes until we get to the hotel and we will go swimming. But, it's a tough thing. You don't really want to intervene and seem critical to another parent. But I do think listening to you, listening to us having this conversation, and more parents, especially MOOBs, moms of boys, listen to this and just understand what their boys need, just makes it better and more pleasant for everybody. And then when you need to get your point across and correct behavior, you're at a different place for doing that, and they actually hear you.
I think everything, I really want to make this point because I have been that mom, right? Where even with all my tools, I have forgotten. You forget because you're exhausted for whatever reason and the systems are not in place to support you. And who knows what is going on at home or what's going on, in the family structure or in the bigger community structure that that contributes on that day. But this is where it becomes that full circle again of what can you do in that? I can't change paid family leave. I can't teach my husband how to not ask a million questions when I give him one simple task. I can't change those things. I can't change my kids. I do try, believe me. And you know what? And good on him for wanting to ask the questions and wanting to understand. But I can't change my kids when they're in a certain mood. What I can change is me. I can change me. So where are we finding those moments of connection with ourselves? Where are we slowing down? It has to happen outside of those moments. And I have been traveling with these two kids since they were babies. And let me tell you, as insane as it can be, and it is, and they're going the wrong way on the people mover, and they're knocking into people, and then they're touching the floor of the airport, and then wiping their eyes. There are moments of peace and pause. And I think the better we can get at leaning into those, then when those moments come where it's escalated and they're on, they've completely crossed a line, we will have the bandwidth to be able to remember the tools that we had. But it really does start with what we can control, and that's ourselves.
I think that's excellent advice. And I think the last thing I want to comment about that is we don't need to be perfect. And I think what you said is something we should all strive for and we should learn as best as we can to do. But when we are in the moment and we lose it, it happens. Don't beat yourself up. Do it better the next time. Find your moments the next time. Think about it. Think about what you said. Be intentional. But inevitably, nobody is perfect. And, you're not going to be that perfect mom all the time.
The original title of the book when I pitched it was The Perfectly Imperfect Parent.
Oh, love it. Love it. I also like the yoga of parenting.
You know what? I feel, it was very specifically my lane, and I was a yoga educator, right? So it's it made perfectly imperfect parent, but that's just something we can all live by. And listen, you may not do it better next time. Sometimes I do it worse the next time, but I'm aware again and I repair, and then you get up and you get to start over at any moment. Any day, every breath is an opportunity to start and begin again.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Before I let you go, Sarah, we do have our MOOB mail section. And I put out to our subscribers a little bit about your background and asked for some questions. And I did choose one today. So I hope you will help me answer this person, who is Amy from Minnesota. Here is our MOOB mail for today.
Oh boy, it's that time. Ooh, mail's here. Your voice meets mine. From your heart straight to our trail. Let's open up that MOOB mail.
Dear Lorianne and the MOOBs, I have two boys and they are constantly wrestling, tackling, hitting, and getting physical with each other. Half the time they're laughing, and 2 seconds later, someone is crying.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm constantly yelling, stop. Do I need to shut it down every time, or is some physical fighting between brothers okay? And how can I stay calm in the moment and actually get them to use their words instead of their bodies?
Hmm.
Which was
Well,
right on the money of what we've
It's
been
literally,
talking.
I was like, okay, Amy, go back and re-listen to the episode at 2 times speed, because I feel like we answered pieces of that. I want to be very
Okay, so
clear that
let's sum it up
I'm not a
then,
child specialist. Yeah, I'm not a child behavioral specialist
Mhm.
by any means. But I do know, and what I see with my kids and what I've learned from my own anxiety and sensory sensitivities, is that there is something proprioceptive about them needing the wrestling and the touch. Right? If you have a kid that's constantly throwing himself against a wall, one of my sons loves to throw himself on the floor and get up. He has to be touching something constantly. And it's like, oh, hello, I chew my fingernails. I smoke cigarettes for however long. I play with different things too. There is a proprioceptive feedback that comes, and especially with wrestling with each other and that connection. It's why I think there's some research, and again, please don't quote me. I should have come with the actual studies of it, where it's like physical play before bed actually helps them sleep better. We were always afraid it was going to rile them up more, and everyone's like, don't do that. But now it's like, no, it actually, like, it's releasing dopamine, and it's releasing the neurotransmitters that are going to eventually help them to calm down. So I do think there is something to it. I think, I see it in my puppy. My puppy needs to wrestle at times, right? There's something where they need their bodies either in contact with someone else or something else. And maybe, I don't know, I'll be really yogic and woo-woo about, like, maybe it's like knowing where you are in space, right? Like maybe knowing, like, where do you begin and where do others end? Like, so I do think that there is a time and a place for that. I mean, it's so personal when those lines start to get crossed. I will say, I don't know how old Amy's kids are, but like now I do just kind of let them go probably longer than they should. And my husband's always like, "Why aren't you intervening?" And it's like, I kind of want them to work it out for themselves. And like, obviously, nobody's bleeding. I was just going to say, and when someone's bleeding, then I do step in. Like, we've had split lips, we've had bites that have led to blood. But like when they're wrestling and I'm watching them discuss it, sometimes they're also like yelling and crying, not because they're actually yelling and crying, but they're like trying to get us involved. And so it just becomes that personal. I referred to it earlier, was like that window of tolerance. Like, how much can we take? And it's not to say you're on your phone and just letting them do their thing and you're not paying attention. This is when you become the anthropologist in the corner and you're observing. And it's like, what can your nervous system take? And when something feels like it's crossing a line, then you're welcome to, like, that's personal. Maybe you step in. But I do think there's something about male identifying children that they need the physical touch. They need to be wrestling. There's something about testosterone and I think it's like, it starts around 3, right? Or I don't know. Again, I'm not a child behavioral scientist or an endocrinologist, but there's something about the movement and the physicality that they actually require.
And having that knowledge, knowing that helps the mom in the situation, because you don't think, I did something wrong to cause this. I'm not controlling them. They're being who they are and what they need to be. And you're there making sure nobody's bleeding and, overseeing. The one thing I just wanted to add, because this was always something I did, and I know that in the little bits of yoga that I have done. What about music? I find that sometimes music, like I will, even now with my grandchildren, if we're having a moment, I'll put on, some kind of passive music or whatever I'm looking to do for the moment. And without saying a word, it changes the tone in the room. And I know sometimes if I will do yoga, I will do a meditation class, even listening to the gong in the room or listening to whatever music. If you go to a spa, you walk in and the scent and the music really just calms you. Do you ever use that as a means of controlling your kids?
Absolutely. It must have been like 2 years ago when they were like coming into that, really frictious place. Now things are more settled. They're playing tic-tac-toe in the car, but it was where like everyone was screaming in the car and this person wanted this. I would play chanting. And then my youngest, who is going to be like on a motorbike in Bali, like in all of his 20s, I can already see it with like a top bun, like lots of jewelry. That's just like, his personality. I mean,
he's a CPA and like a lawyer.
You could do both. You could do both for all I know. But he's my little spirit child. Like he's my little spirit animal, is always asking to do yoga, and he comes out and he meditates with me. And he would ask for the chants. He would specifically ask to put the chants on. And so we would do different Kundalini based chants together. And yes, I love that. I also love even just turning up fun stuff with them too. Like, Danny Go, I think, is brilliant, absolutely brilliant musician. And they just lost their son.
Maybe we will in addition to linking the book and how to purchase the book, maybe we will link some of Sarah's musical suggestions as well, because I think people would love to hear some of that.
I actually have a playlist that's like a kid appropriate dance party, so I will happily share that with you, because you wanna, like, they love Beyonce, like it doesn't have to be just Rafi, although Rafi would be cool.
And it definitely, I think Mom would enjoy it as well. So that's good. All right, Sarah. Well, we are a little bit out of time, so I wanted to thank you so much for coming. You definitely gave me, 64-year-old me who thinks maybe I've heard it all, a lot of things to think about and ways to look at things that I had never heard before. So I thank you for that. And, even those of us whose children are grown, I'm with my grandchildren all the time, and all of these practices really just help and give us something to think about, and we appreciate it. And we want to encourage everybody to go and get a copy of this book, The Yoga of Parenting, because there is a lot more in here than what Sarah had to say today, and she expands on a lot of what she said today as well. So go out and get the book. We will link that on our website. All of you, don't forget to go onto our website, and we have an episodes page where we will have photos of Sarah and her beautiful boys, and some more information about her and how to get in touch with her, as well as an opportunity to join for free the MOOBment, and that enables you to be eligible for all of our giveaways and finding out about things that were happening on the MOOBment before everybody else. So go ahead and join, listen to the podcast, and please give us a 5-star review, because that does go a long way in the podcast world.
Yes,
thank you, Sarah. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I love what you've created. I love the name. It was like the second that we started texting and I read it, I was like, oh, I'm going to love this person. And I love the messaging that you put out in the world, and just your deeper intention of helping moms feel less alone and more supported. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Well, we are trying to do that, and we are MOOB strong. So it is the more MOOBs, the better. And as a matter of fact, we do have a giveaway happening right now. We're giving away MOOB t-shirts, and one is on the way to you, Sarah, because you need to wear it proudly, your mother of only boys shirt. So we hope you'll enjoy that. And I'm going to end the show the way I always do, which is remind everybody to hug your boys, trust your instincts, and remember that we're all boy moms, and those who love us belong is right here.
Oh boy, that's it for today.